Good afternoon, or good evening, rather. This is Talib Kareem. My tie here fixed up. Talib Kareem with STEM4US, and we are very excited to have another wonderful podcast. This is a special podcast because this podcast is actually being dedicated in special memory and honor to one of our partners and our mentors, educator and brilliant labor leader, none other than the recently deceased president of the Washington Teachers Union, Elizabeth Liz Davis. She was a commanding leader of the Washington Teachers Union, which is one of the largest teachers unions in the region, and one of the most vocal advocates for both cyber and STEM education, as well as particularly making sure that our children and our educators and our parents and family alike were safe during this pandemic, and wanting to make sure that we could continue perhaps funding for opportunities to keep children either remote or in safe environments until the pandemic had totally passed, and of course also making sure that there was money to support parents who needed to be home to make sure that those students were engaging with our educators. So we are very excited about this conversation. We want to first of all invite you all. Some of you all might know Liz and have stories. We want to invite you to go and put in your stories or comments or questions for the leaders that we're getting ready to bring on to share their views and their ideas right now. And don't hesitate to put in your comments or questions, and we look forward to getting those answered before the end of our podcast. So without any further ado, let me bring on the leaders that I just alluded to. We have the president, the new president of the Washington Teachers Union, Jacqueline Pogue Lyons, who formerly served as the vice president under Liz. We're getting ready to bring her on right now. And then we also have the president of the Alabama Education Association. That's none other than Sherry Tucker, who is also one of our board members. I think that there might be some background noise, and one of you guys, you can perhaps mute that so we can get that.
As I kind of get more information or notice more things.
Well, let's start this conversation. It's a really wonderful time to be with you all, but certainly a time that we did not expect, or an occasion that we did not expect, and that is the occasion and the to memorialize one of our mentors, our leaders, and one of our supporters, and that is President Elizabeth Davis. I want to first of all again extend our condolences, as we did informally, to you, Jackie, and ask you to basically convey to us how is the Washington Teachers Union family coping with this loss so suddenly and so tragically.
Right. Well, we just got the news early Monday morning of this week, and it's only Thursday. So we're still in shock, and a sadness has set in, a very quiet kind of sadness and kind of a gloom. Like, you find out something one day and you still kind of confused, and maybe this really didn't happen, and you're saying this can't be true. But now that it's Thursday and still the same week that we found out, we know that it's real, and it's like we're just really sad and gloomy and for me, I keep saying to myself, what would Liz want me to do? And so I'm following through, but and saying what would Liz want me to do? But in those quiet moments, it's a real sadness, and it's I went to the office on Tuesday, but I haven't been able to bring myself to go to the office. I keep saying I'm going, but I didn't go yesterday or today.
Right. I can imagine that. And let me ask you also, before we go to Sherry, let me ask you in terms of, I understand that she was just coming from a family gathering at the time of the accident. Can you elaborate on that, perhaps, as a way of bringing some comfort?
I know she had an Easter gathering in her home, but I don't know all the details of it.
Okay.
And details that have been given to me haven't been confirmed or it hasn't come from the actual people that were there. So I prefer to wait. I've met with one family member to give my condolences, but we plan on meeting with the family again as far as making arrangements. So, I'm not going to speak on what I don't know for sure or that's true.
Absolutely. Well, I certainly respect that. I certainly respect that.
I just know, Liz was very active that weekend, and unfortunately, fortunately in some ways, the last time I saw Liz was and it was through Zoom because it's not safe for us to all be in the same room, was at an executive board meeting this past Saturday. And then, of course, the next day was Easter.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. And President Tucker, you lead a similar union there in Alabama, representing how many teachers that you all have there in Alabama?
We have over 82,000 educators.
82,000 educators, and that includes both administrators as well as teachers as well.
It includes every division that works in education. That even includes 24,000 retired educators. It includes our students who are learning to be educators. So we have a great mixing board. If I can share with Jacqueline the hurt that comes along with losing a leader. Oh my. I think I can't remember the exact day, but it was a Friday. We was in Washington, D.C. And I got a call from the president at that time, and she said, I need you to sit down. And I said, what's wrong? And our associate executive director was in a car accident also. And we lost someone, and it's been 7 years now. And our hearts were so heavy. Well, it has not been 7 years, but a picture came up on my Facebook page 7 years ago that we took with him, a group of us. When we were seeing, we loved him so much that we would have to stop and say, can we get a picture? And he'd be tired and we get a picture with him. So losing a leader prematurely is very hurtful. And I'm sure you're going to be a strong leader and you will carry everything forward.
Thank you. I definitely concur with that, Jacqueline.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind thoughts and your condolences. Liz was the type of person, President Davis, where she had, we have close to 5,000 members, near to that, that she had individual relationships with all the members. They had her cell phone number. They could reach out to her at any point or any time of day. She was a night owl, so it wasn't unusual for her to talk to people at 12, 1 o'clock. She wasn't a 9 to 5 person or just during the week. You know, people have been saying they spoke to her Saturday after the board meeting. They spoke to her Sunday. So it's a real loss because not many people know their leaders on such an individual level or have personal individual stories to say how she touched them.
That's true. And when we had our conversation this week about a year ago when we all met and talked, so I'm glad I had the opportunity also to meet her.
Right.
And I was just going to ask each one of you guys to kind of relate to me what was the last conversation that you all had with Liz. And I'll start with you, Jackie. What was that last conversation like? And what are some of the things that you remember from that interaction?
Well, the thing is that because we've been going through the pandemic and we're not together, we haven't been together as a staff on a day-to-day basis. We've been together through Zoom or through telephone conversations. So the only thing that I will say is we had the executive board meeting, and I know my concern that day was the meeting should end on time because I know Liz she'll stay and talk to everybody. And so I remember Liz saying when the meeting started, we're going to end on time because I'm going out for a walk. It was a beautiful day. And it was the day before Easter. So all I remember is that I said, I'm not going to stay on this Zoom. Once she said the meeting was over, I said quickly, I'm not going to stay because if I stay, she won't go out to walk. And I didn't want to add to the conversation. So as soon as she said the meeting was over, I said, you know, we all said Happy Easter if you celebrate. But I was so conscious that I wanted her to get out. That was my real concern. And normally as a staff, we wish each other a happy holiday. But I didn't join. We didn't do that. And for a lot of us, it was, we didn't want to disturb her day. Like she needed a break. And so normally we would contact each other. And then, you know how you'll text and then somebody else will text and somebody else will text and it'll just go on for an hour or two. I think I was conscious that I wasn't going to wish, you know, like I'll see how everybody's holiday went when we meet on Monday and our staff meetings on Tuesday. So it was always we've been really going at it. And I think most of us were really conscious of this. And normally some weekends are just regular weekends, but this was a special weekend because it was Easter. So I understand that, you know, I'd like to get the story from the horse's mouth, but I do understand that she did have a real family weekend. And that doesn't happen a lot for Liz because she gives to herself. So I'm glad I didn't bother her. I'm glad I let her go out for a walk. And I understand from another colleague that they said she was able to get out in her yard, that she was able to go to, I think they said she even was able to go out to a thrift store. And Liz loves, she loves shopping at thrift stores. So, and that's another hobby that I have. I love gardening. I love going to thrift stores. So that's where I find that, yeah.
Well, we hope that she did get a chance to do that. And let me also ask you, President Tucker, as you may remember, the last event that we held with Liz's participation, and she was prolific in participating in our STEM4US activities over the past 3 or 4 years since we established a partnership with the Washington Teachers Union. But the last event she had was, as you mentioned, about a year ago on about April the 20th, we had a town hall about, you know, reclaiming our children during this time of the pandemic and what needed to be done. And, you know, parents were just kind of grappling with home education, homeschooling, and supporting their children. And it was something, she spoke as a teachers union president in Washington, D.C., and you spoke as a teachers union president there, and or education union president there in Alabama. What do you remember from that conversation?
Well, I think that the general concern that we all had in the town hall, if I'm correct, because I've done a lot of town hall meetings and Zoom meetings, and we was mostly concerned with the children and technology. We talked about tech. I'm trying to pull it all back up. You got me going into my memory bank. But we talked about the children who are at home and the concerns we had with them being at home, and those that had technology and those that did not, those that have food. We tried to have those conversations, but we were more concerned about how the children was going to be serviced, and we don't see them every day. And that was the basis of our conversation.
And I must say that one of the things that I remember from that conversation, and I don't, it wasn't actually my last conversation, but it was definitely, I think I had another conversation with her after that event about the following event that we had when the schools were just talking about reopening, and that happened in August. And unfortunately, we couldn't confirm that conversation, but I wanted to find out in terms of, my understanding in terms of her position was that she wanted to have the schools continue to keep an option, at least, for parents who did not feel safe about returning their students to the classrooms because of the fact that there was still this pandemic, and both the threat to both the students, to their families, and to the educators that were in the building. Can you speak a little bit to that, Jackie, about that concern and how she spoke up? Maybe in some cases, as they say, speaking out of turn, because as everybody is trying to basically push the students back into the classrooms, especially some so-called affluent parents, right? She stood up, and had a contrarian perspective. What was that like?
Well, that's why I said we were very conscious of the fact that Liz needed a break this past weekend, because that would have been our fight since we had to close, since the district had to close schools in March. That we knew that kids needed to be back in school. That was the best place for learning, but we didn't want our students, and definitely our teachers, we didn't want them back until it was safe. So that has been the total grind that we've had, and the total cry and the advocacy that Liz led, and since March. And I think that because of Liz and her hard work, with the support of our members, the tireless work of our members, with Liz's leadership, I think that's why the schools are safer now. And it's something that we talked about, that the schools, in some areas were not safe before the pandemic. But one good thing we can say that I think the schools will be safer, and parents are more aware of what needs to happen in the schools as far as ventilation, and cleanliness, and the fact that it should not have taken a pandemic for us to know that not all kids have access to technology, especially because it is 2021. It's not 1921. So all these issues came to a head, and Liz was a master at bringing it all bringing it all to the forefront of media and the District of Columbia Public Schools and the city. So we have her to thank for that.
I was relating to you, Jackie, and I'm sure you could probably respect this, Sherry, is that the mayor in the District of Columbia serves as the governor as well. And so in her press conference on Monday, which was the day after the death of Liz, she started the press conference acknowledging, didn't say anything at first, but saying, I want to first of all acknowledge the death of Liz Davis and the impact this had on the entire community in the District of Columbia. And I know, again, this mayor kind of coming out of the ranks of those who supported Michelle Reed, who was a person in the District of Columbia's history who was very disruptive, in a bad way, some people say, in a good way, other people say, but definitely, Liz stood up to Michelle Reed. And again, Michelle Reed was an ally of the current mayor when the mayor was a city council member. And so the fact that, they clashed over a variety of issues, be it the pay for educators, be it the issues of safety, even personnel issues. The Liz, when they replaced the administrator, the chancellor, and I had reservations about how they replaced them and the circumstances about in which they replaced, and she shared our views. I wondered, from your perspective, what was it like to be to work in in that kind of in the shadow of somebody who would just speak so plainly. And again, I mentioned this about the mayor. The mayor's the mayor's respect that she showed for Liz is noteworthy, because they were adversaries, but yet she respected the strength of Liz's commitment and voice, even though it was adversarial, to the point that she showed that respect so soon after Liz's death. Can you relate to that, Jackie?
Oh, I totally can relate to it, because we don't always agree with the mayor. I'll be the first to say it. Liz would be the first to say it. But we've suffered a great loss. And I think it was very respectful of the mayor to have a moment of silence and to acknowledge that we may have disagreed with each other, but I respected Liz as a leader. And it takes, that says a lot about the mayor, that, and it says a lot about a lot of people when you can say we didn't agree all the time with each other, but it wasn't personal. She has a job to do, I have a job to do, but this city, the District of Columbia Public Schools, the children and the teachers have suffered a great loss. And I don't know if anybody knows it, but the mayor has recently suffered a great loss of a family member due to death. So that just says that these are extraordinary times, and a lot of folks have been rising to the occasion. So I'm grateful, and I'm so grateful to the outpouring that we've gotten. But that doesn't mean that we're mourning Liz. We're going to celebrate Liz. And we know what Liz would want us to do is get right back to work. Liz loved a great celebration. So she would want us to celebrate. Liz, if anybody knew her, she could be the life of the party. But we're going to take the time to celebrate her, to remember her. That's what the mayor did. And I'm sure everyone, the chancellor, the mayor, will want us to get back to work, and
Absolutely.
especially Liz. So I'm grateful for the total outpouring that I've gotten, and our staff has received, and the teachers have received, from everyone. And everyone should know that it's not just the city of DC, but it's been nationally, and I'm sure in some cases internationally, because Liz was a dynamic leader. So we're just grateful. And like I said,
And
everybody, we keep saying it's just Thursday. This happened on Monday, so we're still reeling.
and we're so grateful that you are able to be with us even so soon afterwards. And if there are any of our listeners who would like to share their thoughts or ask any questions, they're free to do that. Drop it in the chat, and we promise to have it respond. Don't hesitate to subscribe and like this conversation. Let me ask you, President Tucker, as a president leading such a large union down there in Alabama. You know what it's like to walk in these shoes. And let me just, again, since you are here with Jackie, and Jackie, I understand that you are now the president of the Teachers Association. Is that correct?
The Washington Teachers Union. But let's say this out of respect for Liz. I know that under our Constitution and bylaws that I am, by right and bylaws, I am the president of the union. But I'm okay for this week, out of respect for her, saying that I am the incoming president of the Washington Teachers Union, and will be no longer have my role as the general vice president, but I cherish my role as a general vice president, and I am, just being very thoughtful about my upcoming role as president. So this week, I'm Jacqueline, the general vice president, and the upcoming president of the Washington Teachers Union.
And I respect that, and I guess that's why I'm really excited to have again Sherry here, who is in this role that you're stepping into. And I would like to ask Sherry, what advice might you convey to Jackie as she seeks to fill these enormous, maybe gargantuan shoes to some extent that are being left behind by President Davis?
Choose your battles carefully. All of them do not belong to you. That's the most important part. Take a day out of the week, shut down. Sunday is my day. I give it to God. I do my church. And if any association business come across my telephone, I don't answer it. Only family and friends, okay? On your email, you're out of the office. Choose that day. If it's Sunday, for me it's Sunday. I'm out of the office on Sunday. You got to take some time, mental time for yourself. Liz did it. She was with her family, and it's important. I have not had a lot of time with my family, but when I get it, oh my God, it is so great. It is just great. But I had to start doing this, knowing that I'm on my way out after doing 2 terms. I'm into my last term. So what I'm doing now is taking the whole weekend and no emails. Friday night to Sunday night, I'll check if it's something to see if it's something important. But otherwise, that's the first thing NEA teaches us as presidents. Put the out of office on there. I just started doing it this last part of my term. I'm out of the office. Learn to take some walks. When you stress, go for a walk. Those are just the good things. And think about yourself. Me and my grandkids, we FaceTime each other all the time. So, and that helps out a lot. And I have wonderful family.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good to keep in touch with them, even if you don't go to see them. They call me, they text me from all over the United States just to say encouraging words.
Right.
So it's going to be important that you keep in touch with everyone and choose your battles carefully. They all don't belong to you.
Very good words. My family tells me that all the time, so I'm taking it to heart. But because I know this, like I said, this last week has just been. It's not even a week, but it's been a whirlwind. So I know I'm gonna have to figure it out.
One last thing that I do, and they know it. I love the members.
Yep.
I love them. There's no faking in it. Even if I feel that they don't love me like I love them,
Right.
I have to remember I was told by one of our former leaders, he said, you got to care about the people you're leading.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how hard it gets, I have to care about them. And that's what I do. I remind them when I'm no longer president, I don't have to be so sweet and nice.
That's it.
But it's in me to care about people, and that's what you have to do, Jacqueline. You have to love and care about your people, and you have to love and care about yourself.
True. No, that's the mark of a true union leader. That it's almost like the true mark of a teacher. You got 22 kids, and as a teacher, or you got 30 of them, and you got those who do exactly what you want them to do, and those who are like, nope, not doing it, but you still love them, care for them, teach them all the same. And that's the mark of a true educator, and definitely the mark of a true union leader, because some of our folks go through some really trials and tribulations, but you gotta be there for them. And
Right.
and you have that passion. I definitely have that passion. Because you never know what life will bring you, especially when you're trying to be an educator, and you got to be there to support them.
Mhm.
So, and it's just finding that balance.
That's
for
right.
me.
Yeah. Right.
I was just getting ready to ask you about some of the advocacy agenda that Liz left behind. I know one of the agenda items that we just spoke about is, again, making sure that schools were both clean and safe, but also that at least some part of remote education could be continued for the families who wanted it. So we know that. But in addition, what about Liz's passion for STEM education and cyber education? We understand. I remember one of the things she often used to tell me about is how she started off as a technical drafting instructor, which we definitely put into the STEM family of instructors. But she taught me and brag about how she started off as a STEM teacher, I guess at Jefferson Middle School, and how it was very unique for her, because technical drafting is considered a man's kind of field, if you will. But she was really interested in making sure that there was not only a robust number of women and girls in that class, but making sure that our schools taught more to prepare our young people, not just for college, but for vocational skills or vocational jobs that oftentimes, people are gonna, are being brought outside of the city, or in fact, sometimes outside of the country to take. And Liz was a big proponent of making sure that we had both cyber and non-cyber vocational skills training. Can you speak a little bit to that, Jackie, and then turn it over to you, Sherry, to talk about what you all are doing to promote that as well in Alabama?
Well, Liz also said that when she was given the job as a drafting teacher, her first day at the job, the principal didn't want her there because she was a woman, and she fought back and was able to keep the job. So one thing I will say about Liz is that she was never fearful of trying anything new or different, especially based on her background and being denied or not let in. She didn't want that to happen to any of the students of the district. So anything that would open up math and science, the arts, history, just having students, particularly students of color, know the historic value of a city like the district. She taught in a school that is now named Sousa Middle School, but it was part of, it was attached to, at one point, Bowling, I believe, versus Sharp, it was attached to the Supreme Court case, Brown versus the Board of Ed. And when she taught at the school, she was instrumental in helping the school celebrate the 50th anniversary of both of those court cases and bringing to light the fact that a school with such historic value as Sousa should not be left to deteriorate. So she was interested, like you would say, a Renaissance person, in everything. And she wanted the children to have the value of that.
I'm certainly very much aware of that as well. Mm-hmm. And in terms of your thoughts, Sherry, can you speak about what you guys are doing to basically focus on those types of opportunities for the young people there in your jurisdiction as well? What are you guys doing in that regard?
With us, we have an education professional department, and our educators are given a chance to listen and partake in STEM learning to share with their classroom. Dr. Pamela Fawcett is the manager of that department, and she has Suzanne Clemens working with her. Then she has several other educators that help teach these classes. So to make sure that our students in the schools all through Alabama, we give classes which are free to our members regarding STEM. And it's a wonderful opportunity. And not only that, the State Department of Education in Alabama also give the professional points that they need for attending these classes. So we are on target with our training for our educators all throughout the state of Alabama.
And I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you mentioning particularly the issue of teacher professional development, because that was one of the last projects that we worked on, Jackie, with with President Davis, and that's the idea of making sure we increase the amount of STEM teacher professional development. And one of our board members, Kim Cherry, was at that time the director of STEM for DC Public Schools, and she was prolific in her work in creating some teacher professional development for STEM related courses. But since she, they, as you may remember, they phased out her position, and we see a drop off in that type of professional development, which is more now needed in this time than even ever. I mean, there's so much, whereas before, and one of the things that we talked about with President Davis is how challenging it was to teach our young people STEM related classes before the pandemic and versus after the pandemic. How students were checking out even before the pandemic, right? But now, we see that there is a concerted effort to phase out people altogether. You know what I mean? And if our children are not, really, really focused on the latest of technologies, they will not be able to become employable at all, right? So with this in mind, what are
Can I, excuse me, let me,
yes.
And this is what I was looking for before I start speaking. On yesterday, Alabama State University presented Girls of Color STEM into Women of Science. And there were several women, and I won't go through all the names, but they had a panel discussion on yesterday, and it was free. Again, this was free, and it was done by Alabama State and AEA, and it was presented to those that want to listen to our conversation about the women who started off as girls, and they making major contribution now into science.
Wanted to make sure we captured that, and that's exactly the type of thing that I think that President Davis would be interested in promoting. Jackie, about this professional development, I know that you all used to host the gatherings at the Gallaudet University to offer some of these modules, and I remember being a presenter at one of them, and that was several years ago. Have you guys still done that, and are you including STEM professional development opportunities, and is that still a priority for you, or will you make that a priority as you step into these shoes that have been left by President Davis?
Well, my first real initiation into the union was as a professional development instructor. So that's always been at my heart. I think that you have to have rigorous professional development and mentoring for teachers. One, so that they're better practitioners of their profession, and two, so that they want to stay in the profession, especially the first 5 years of teaching. That can be the most important thing, or the most important component for teachers staying in education is rigorous, focused, productive professional development. So we had to switch up a little. We've never stopped having the Shared Vision Conference. We had it this year, and it was very successful, but unfortunately, it was done virtually. I mean, it was successful. Nothing to me is better than human contact, but considering we've been thrust into this world, we still continue to have the Shared Vision Conference, and we embrace all aspects of professional development for teachers, whether it's math, science, literacy, history. We're always eager to get our teachers the the professional development that they need and they want, especially for our students who come from schools or from neighborhoods that have high free and reduced lunch. The only way that we're going to get more of those students into STEM is not to start teaching them science in middle school, but we have to start from the time they walk into early childhood. And we know this pandemic has taught us how important science is. You can look around us to see who has suffered the most. We've had the most casualties and death in communities of color and communities with low income. And so there's a need. In a place like the District of Columbia, one of the reasons they're saying that we have such a high mortality rate among our newborns and our mothers of color is because we don't have enough Black doctors. You don't decide to become a doctor as a young Black male or female when you get to high school. That starts from the time you walk into school when you're 3, 4, and 5. It's almost too late when you start introducing kids to science in middle school. And so you have to make all those systemic changes from the beginning. And one of the ways you do it is solid professional development for teachers in the STEM area.
Well, we would love to pick back up that mantle that we had been working to develop with President Davis, and we look forward, hopefully, continuing that relationship with you as you step into those heavy, those large and heavy shoes,
Right.
and I want to make sure that we get Sherry on this conversation as well, and that is in terms of the legacy that again was left by Liz, and perhaps even a foretelling of what you want your own legacy to be. If you could share, what do you think that her legacy? What will she be most remembered by? If you could share that, and what do you think? What do you think? You want to do to contribute towards the advancement of that legacy. And we'll start with you, Jackie, and then pick it up with.
Well, one, I want to make sure that I'm always available and supportive of my members, getting to the heart of what they need and always working toward making sure that they are healthy, supported, and productive in the classrooms, supporting anything that would retain our teachers. We're very good at getting our teachers to come into the profession, but we've been very poor at getting them to stay. That's something that President Davis focused on. More importantly, also, she focused on how do you evaluate teachers fairly? That's another way that you can support teachers, is making sure that we just don't take out what a teacher does for 30 minutes here and 30 minutes there, or which can sometimes come up to an hour and a half, and teachers work over 180 days, but you work 180 days, but you're evaluated based on what you do for an hour and a half. So making sure that teachers are evaluated fairly, that professional development is just not is solid, not just trickery or what somebody thinks is the fad at that moment. I guess lastly, make sure teachers are paid fairly for what they do. I think we've learned during this pandemic just how valuable. Any parent in the home will say, hey, I didn't know that this thing that my child does every day is so important. So we gotta value that and treat them like the professionals they are. And I guess lastly, what I will say about President Davis is it was not what I'm going to do tomorrow or morning what I did yesterday, but what am I going to do right now today? There's an urgency about what we do. So as I've said before, if I can accomplish half of what she's done, I would consider myself to be a good president.
And I was just, as you said that, reminded of how President Davis, the last time we were all together, I was in the office and she summoned you into the office along with, I think, Josh Williams and some of the other staff. And it was just like a commander, basically giving out marching orders, and that was definitely that spirit. And I am confident that you will be able to step into that role, especially with the visionary comments that you've made. And I want to ask you, particularly President Tucker, because you have a very diverse, membership there in Alabama. Diverse both, geographically, some in rural parts and some in, urban parts. They're diverse, racially, and also diverse politically, and I know that you hit or you've been definitely both commended during the pandemic and also condemned during the pandemic by some of the family of educators that you all have there, and especially as Jackie is again the population of DC teachers is definitely changing as the demographics in the District of Columbia changes, and there's a lot, almost seemingly a larger amount of animosity or animus towards teachers of color coming from both within the ranks of other educators as well as within the ranks of the administrators. How would you recommend that our incoming president Lyons succeed in that type of climate as you have been able to succeed?
Wow. DC is so different from anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
We sit and we watch Washington, D.C., and it is an amazing place, yet complicated. I think that Jacqueline would be able to look at the values that past President Davis set and build relationships, because Washington, D.C. is a place of relationships. Everybody got to have a relationship with someone else to achieve their goals. And once she builds her relationships, I don't think she's going to have a problem. I think she got it. That's the whole part of being vice president. You're supposed to keep your eyes open. And President Davis, past President Davis, set a great trail for her to follow. And she's already knowledgeable. I don't think there's a lot I can tell her about the great Washington, D.C. After doing 12 years back and forth, traveling to Washington, D.C., and a few years before that, building relationships is the most important thing. Jackie, can I say Jackie?
Yes, please, yes.
It's the most important thing that you're going to do, and you got a great spirit about you, and I think you're going to do it. I think you'll do it. I know you can. Next time I come to Washington, D.C., I may not be president.
Right.
I may not be president, but I will come and visit you.
Please do, definitely.
Maybe I'll get a chance to see the sites that I've never seen.
I know. And I hate to say it, but I've never been to that part of the South, meaning Alabama, Mississippi, and I was a history major, and so to say that I've never had an opportunity to visit that part of the South that's so historic is
Yes.
it's on my list. I can't say I'll be able to do it soon, but I know once I settle down and take some time to vacation, that's high on my list.
I understand well. I really, really do. Please come through and find me, and I'll be glad to take you to lunch.
Yes, I plan to eat my way through the South.
Bring stretchable clothing.
Yes, I will. I will have no problem with that.
We have great food all through the South from oh my God, from Georgia to Alabama to Louisiana, Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
There's a favorite food for me in each one. And to understand your members is to understand what other members are going through.
Yes.
And that's very important that you understand that. And going to visit them is a great way to understand that. And
most definitely.
And to learn our foods also.
Most definitely.
Those are very wise words, and I want to pass on one of our supporters who I think may have enjoyed some of the comments that President Davis related in one of our last programs. Charles Orbit wanted to convey to the Washington Teachers Union his condolences from down in North Carolina. So definitely, you can say for sure, as you can convey to your members that her impact was really nationwide. I mean, and through so many relationships, the relationship with STEM4US, but also, the American Federation of Teachers family and all, and all the many unions across the world that she was able to touch by her leadership. As we conclude, I just would want to share with everyone that one of the things that we're looking forward to doing to also honor Liz's memory following this tribute that we're paying today is on the 28th of this month. We're having our Cyber Education Advocacy Day. And we have identified a number of positions that are right in line with what Liz was doing as she departed this world, both advocating for continued funding for remote education and teacher training as a part of that, as well as training for parents who want to be better teachers helpers, if you will, both while they're remote educating their children and even afterwards. So one part of funding. The second is to increase the amount of money that we have and our spending on cyber and STEM education, but cyber education in particular. So we would really like to have an opportunity to work with you, Jackie, on that initiative. And we are planning to name this particular advocacy day in honor of President Davis. Our last advocacy day was last year, actually before the pandemic, and it was on Capitol Hill. So this year, the advocacy day is going to be remote, so it's going to be a little different. But I'm confident that we will have an even greater impact. And as a result of being remote, we're able to tie in our networks such as that in Alabama and other places throughout the South, like North Carolina and Mississippi and Virginia and so many other places where some of the same issues are being discussed. So we look forward to you and your both 5,000 members there and here in Washington, D.C., as well as your 52,000 members down there in Alabama, Sherry. And
80.
we look 80. I'm sorry. Shoot.
Yes.
Apologize. Reducing about 30. You're 82,000 members down there in Alabama. And I think with this type of advocacy, we can really make an impact Last comments on you, Sherry, and then we'll close it out with you, Jackie.
Well, I just want to encourage Jackie and the members there in Washington, D.C. I want to encourage your hearts. Keep moving forward, and I pray that all is well with Miss Davis' family.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Jackie?
I just want to say it's wonderful meeting Miss Tucker and getting her words of wisdom, because with 80-something thousand members, I cannot complain with my close to 5,000. So I will take what you said to heart, because the words that you've used my family's definitely been telling me that this week. And I want to thank you all so much for honoring President Davis and for your outpouring of condolences and care, and just bringing to light how important she was to the children of DC, to the teachers of DC. And as you've said, and everyone has said, it wasn't just a local leadership. It was leadership that was nationwide and that spread beyond this nation. So I from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you for acknowledging her leadership and celebrating her life today. Thank you.
Well, again, we appreciate you, President Tucker. We appreciate you, incoming President Lyons, for taking time for this tribute. And we look forward to having some more conversations as we get ready for our National Cyber Education Advocacy Day on the 28th. Stand by for information. Don't hesitate to subscribe to this channel so you can get more details. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to put them in the chat, and we'll follow back up with you. This has been a wonderful conversation. We appreciate you. We wish you all good evening, and we look forward to the opportunity to continue to highlight some of the great works of President Tucker, incoming President Lyons, and of course the legacy of our leader, our commander, our legend, and that is none other than the president who we are all mourning, and that is President Liz Davis. We wish for her and her family peace and comfort, and ask that the Almighty bring them closer to Him in this time, as well as the other gentleman who was also a contributor of the DC community, who also lost his life in that tragic accident. Our prayers are for them all, and we ask that you all keep them in your prayers. And we look forward to having our next conversation with you next week in our cyber education conversation. This is Tyler Perrine, this is STEM4US CEO, and we look forward to having more conversations with you all next week. Good evening.